And here's Nick from Magic.
Everyone.
I'll let Nick take it away.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Nic Novak. I'm one of the co-founders of a startup called Magic. And I'm just going to be talking today about how we developed an ecosystem of software to handle your life 24/7. So just a little bit about what Magic is. Magic is what we call an on-demand personal assistant that you can text from your phone to get whatever you want 24/7. And so just like in this image over here, let's say you wake up and you have you find a citation on your dashboard on your car. You can get your phone, text Magic, and we will pay that ticket for you and clear that citation all over your phone. And just to rewind a little bit, so 2 years ago, the way this idea really started out was really just a simple text interaction between two of my friends who were really just being a little bit silly and kind of hungry. So one of them said, "I want some chicken fried rice and a Coke." My other friend replied, "Sure, I'll get some started, one moment. Okay, I can have that arrive in 45 minutes. It's going to cost $20. Do you want me to proceed?" So on this day, the chicken fried rice did actually come, and we thought, this is kind of a cool idea. We realized there was some appeal in this idea. And really for the past 2 years, we've been working really hard to build out this service, to build out Magic and bring it to more people. And we've kind of had building it with several advantages in mind compared to a traditional, what would you think of as a conventional assistant. So with Magic, it's 24/7, which means you can text the service any time of the day or night, every day. Magic will respond within minutes. Magic can do multiple requests at one time. So unlike an assistant might be good at multitasking, but Magic can literally do more than one thing simultaneously, and it requires no effort to hire or manage on your part. So Magic, we want to never be able to get sick or need to sleep or go on vacation. And for the cost of this, so what you might pay an assistant for time that assistant is not spent actually working, with Magic, you pay at a rate of $35 an hour that is prorated to the minute, and those minutes are only the time that that Magic is actually spent working for you is charged. So that's what we have been aiming to build. And a lot of people think about this kind of situation, and they imagine a simple conversation, and the thought is, oh, this must be very simple. You just have someone on our side who is fielding and reading these text messages and then fulfilling the requests and sending the text messages out. What kind of software could you possibly need for that? Simple, right? But we've found that it's actually very complicated. It actually kind of requires a whole team of people and a lot of software in order to provide those aforementioned benefits that I was just talking about. The ability to do the 24/7, multiple things at the same time. On your side, you don't have to worry about hiring and managing and training. Although Magic does learn to get better with you, you don't have to train Magic to be a good assistant. That's kind of our responsibility. And to have a layer of quality control and data security and routing of these SMS, text messages, and phone calls from not just us to you, but different vendors and calendarization and all these things that we need to tie together to make the experience good for you. It really does take a lot of people and a lot of software. And the other thing that kind of makes this a little more complex is that the clients can ask and do ask for really, really anything. So for us to be able to do that effectively, we need to really remove all the cognitive load of you having to think about doing that. So thinking about these examples that might sound simple, so finding and booking your flight, renewing a passport that's about to expire, or renting out a space and hosting a corporate event there, getting your apartment cleaned, sending flowers to a loved one, or managing your email. These are all things that seem like at first blush might be kind of simple, right? You have someone who books the flight, right? But behind the scenes, there's actually a lot of complexity in the real world that we need to keep up with the software and the operations. So when we're booking the flight, right, do we know your frequent flyer number? We don't want to have to ask you again for that if we already have that. Is there a preference that you have in terms of an aisle or a seat on the plane? Renewing a passport, what is actually the fastest way to do that, and what are the pitfalls, and we need to be aware of those pitfalls. For the renting out space at a corporate event, we need to coordinate with the venue If there's going to be food there, it has to be catered. We have to mitigate risks. If there's an outdoor space, is it going to rain? Maybe we have to erect a tarp to protect people from getting wet there. And even with the flowers, if a courier is sending them there, what happens if the courier is confused? 2 days later, they call us. How do we handle that call? If we're writing emails on your behalf, what is your communication style? We need to know that so we can communicate effectively. So all these things, they require a lot of software. And we found that we really needed to develop a whole ecosystem of almost like little apps that target specific business needs. And with that, we've kept a few principles in mind pretty heavily at Magic. So experimentation, just really important for us, the ability to try out a lot of different things in software and to not necessarily know up front what it is all the time that we're even going to be building at the time we set out to do that. Rapid iteration, so the ability to deploy code really fast and break things really fast and fix them when they're broken is very important. And Yagni, which is a principle of programming that we've kind of adopted really heavily at Magic as a startup, and it stands for you ain't gonna need it. And what it is fundamentally about is this idea that you shouldn't add functionality to software until that functionality is really deemed truly necessary. So instead of going into a code hole for 2 weeks and building out this crazy system that handles all sorts of edge cases, there's something we can deploy tomorrow that just goes 0 to 1 on solving a particular business need. And because really that whole thing that you might have built out, it really might turn out to be the case that you ain't gonna need it. So this is where we kind of came to AWS, and here's what it kind of looks like. A lot of people are probably familiar. All the services that AWS has to offer, we came to this because we found that we really needed infrastructure to match these principles of software engineering that we have and these different needs. And I think a lot of people, when they see this kind of thing, they think maybe there's some element of confusion. What do I do with all of these different services? They imagine them kind of like puzzle pieces that need to be fit together to create like a perfect architecture to power your business, and it's intimidating. And there's a lot of these things, right? How do you do that? And then you see these intense diagrams of how to create these architectures, and kind of you might scratch your head thinking about how to assemble all these pieces together. So at Magic, we've thought about it a little bit differently. So for us, it's a little bit less like puzzle pieces that need to get assembled together and more kind of like this, more like a buffet. So almost like I have a sweet tooth right now, I think I'll eat that brownie. But instead of a sweet tooth, there are needs of our business, and instead of the brownie, it's services that AWS or other things might have to offer that we can go kind of like pluck out as we need them. So I just want to kind of go through what some of those needs have been for us. So one of them, one need we've had, so when clients are communicating with Magic, they want to communicate with us not just over SMS, not just text messages, but also over email. So they want Magic to manage their email. They want us to send emails on their behalf. So this thinking of these services as the buffet and what the needs that we had at the time we had this at the time we had this need, there are different routes that we could have gone. So if we were kind of starting fresh as a company and having this need, well, there are a few things in here like Lambda, DynamoDB, and the simple email service that we could probably throw together to solve this problem quickly. At the time, we were coming from a LAMP-like stack, and so it made more sense for us to go with kind of a very vanilla, simple web setup and throw something together built on S3 and EC2. So, but kind of nice knowing that there are different paths that we could have taken there. Another example of that, so we kind of frequently have the need to sift through large amounts of data at Magic. So what was the last time that someone wanted to order 50 pizzas for a catered event in San Diego? These are questions that, we need to answer things like this all day long, basically. And from our perspective, it's this issue of having a large event stream relative to data store. And we need to be able to search very quickly after the new data is produced. We need to be able to answer these questions really fast. So for us, was just a matter of trying out Elasticsearch, right? That's something we can plug in and see if it's working very, very quickly. Now, had we been coming from more of a data warehouse perspective, needing to run large aggregate queries more along the lines of how many pizzas have we ever sold, then maybe it could make sense to set up something like Redshift there. Next, we want to be able to leverage the large amounts of data that we have with machine learning to create useful predictive models in software and also build systems that learn and improve themselves. So down here in this area, there are kind of these targeted services for this in AWS with EMR and Lex and the machine learning service, which we could use to create a conversational bot. But again, for us, experimentation, we don't know all the time necessarily that we even want to build a conversational bot. We need to be able to experiment. So very nice that EC2 includes the ability to spin up a node that has these powerful GPUs that we can then go in there and run kind of whatever neural architecture it is that we want to spin up and run our data through that to create these models. And lastly, thinking of this ecosystem of software that we're building has kind of is comprised of these many apps, and we need them to be able to play nicely with each other, even if they have been written with different technologies. And we need to be able to get insights from when things are going wrong and debug issues very quickly. So the basic thing that we needed right away was just kind of this basic interrogation, searching, and reporting. And so that to just plug in to CloudWatch got us going with that need. But of course, in the future, there's always the ability to build out more of an advanced system with queued notifications and events that are, notifications that are based on triggered events. There are options for us there. And I think one thing that's interesting is when you think of it like kind of this buffet, what starts to happen is you get over the course of many months this assemblage of these services coming together that look a little bit like that diagram that I showed you before, but the difference is that this wasn't really planned out in some sort of master plan. There wasn't a scheme to make it look like this. It's something that evolves as the needs of the business make themselves known, and we have to attack them kind of one by one. So it kind of just fits in together like that. And just to kind of summarize, I think the main benefits that, as a startup, I think we've gotten from thinking about things this way is, so first and foremost, is flexibility and comfort, just knowing that there are always multiple options to choose from. We might have different needs. Those needs might change. We might be in a different place as a company. And so there's flexibility to choose these different paths. And there's comfort knowing that there's a path forward. If the needs change, it's going to be fairly trivial to kind of upgrade the setup to a different type of solution. And because AWS is kind of its own ecosystem, all of the services play nicely together, right? It makes that path forward a lot easier. There's less resistance in going that way. And then, of course, for free, you kind of get this disaster recovery and fault tolerance over different geographical areas. And all these things are just kind of really nice coming from the perspective of just a startup who, we need to move fast. We have immediate business problems that have to get solved quickly, but also the need to experiment and not necessarily know, up front what it is we're going to be building. So yeah, that is everything that I had to talk about at this lightning talk. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, if there's questions in here, but yeah. But that's all I have today. Yeah, some questions. Yeah, the website is getmagic.com. Getmagic.com. You had a question over here? Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was, how do you know when a human should be doing something and when software should be doing something, and how do we merge those together, right? So, and that is the answer is it is quite complicated. So, part of the benefit of Magic, for example, this 24/7ness means that the person who's literally working on something for you right now, and they might be working with the aid of software, may not be working on that same thing next week at the same time. So if a vendor is calling in about that, if it is something about flowers that you need delivered, we need the software to be able to kind of tie that together to whoever is there at that time. And it honestly just varies on a case-by-case basis, the different types of requests. They all are very nuanced. We found that we do need, though, to kind of merge the human and the software together. It's not really feasible to use just humans, and it's not really feasible to just software. Hopefully that answers your question there. Yeah, a question here. Go through a what? Yeah, so the question here is security. So there are different levels of sensitive information depending on what you ask Magic to do. And so we do take a lot of security precautions. There's, on the human side, there's training data security courses that everyone must go through and secure physical access to the machines where this is happening. On the software side, there are, levels of encryption that we use and things like that. But yeah, it depends what kind of, these are kind of we do take extra precautions to protect that data. Yeah, it was over 2 years ago that from that first text message that I showed till now. Yeah, any more questions? Okay, thank you.